Dubro Suspicion Files.
All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're opening Case File 044, and this is an investigation into something you've probably seen 100 times, both online and just by looking up. It's a story that really blurs the line between a simple observation and a massive global conspiracy. This is the case of the white sky.
And it all starts with this. You know the scene? It's a beautiful, clear blue day, a jet flies overhead, but that white line it leaves behind, it just doesn't fade. It hangs there, it spreads out, and soon is joined by others, until that brilliant blue sky is gone, replaced by this kind of milky white haze. This one image, this single observation, is what kicks off one of the most persistent theories of our time.
So, to really understand what's going on here, we have to start by opening the evidence file from the perspective of the people who believe something secret is happening. We're going to lay out their claims, look at their evidence, and really build their case.
Now this whole thing really boils down to one central conflict. On one hand, you've got the official story, contrails, just harmless little ice crystals, simple physics. But on the other hand, you have the proponents' claim, chemtrails, evidence of a secret, massive spraying program. I mean, these are two wildly different explanations for the exact same thing we see in the sky.
And if it is a secret program, why are they doing it? Well, the alleged motives are all over the map, and honestly, they're pretty terrifying. Proponents suggest it could be anything from geoengineering, like trying to block the sun, to modifying weather, all the way to some really dark stuff, like psychological manipulation, population control, or even biological warfare.
So where did all this even come from? Well, the theory really started to catch fire in the mid-90s, right as the public internet was exploding. It began with people just filming what they thought were weirdly persistent trails in the sky. Then a journalist named William Thomas coined the term chemtrails, and it was blasted out to millions by the legendary radio host Art Bell. But here's the kicker. Believers found a real 1996 Air Force research paper called Owning the Weather in 2025, and for them that was the smoking gun.
Okay, so the case that believers present is really built on three main pillars. First, there's the visual evidence, the trails that last for hours and seem to make these weird grid patterns. Second, the sickness. They link these trails to a whole host of unexplained illnesses. And third, what they see as the hard proof, the chemical footprint. We're talking about citizen scientists taking their own soil and water samples and reporting high levels of things like aluminum and barium.
All right, so that's the case for the prosecution. Now it's time to bring in the defense. We're moving on to the scientific rebuttal. We're going to take that whole evidence file and put it under the microscope for a full atmospheric autopsy.
And let's just start with this number because it's pretty staggering. In 2016, a survey asked 77 of the world's leading atmospheric scientists if they'd ever seen evidence of a secret, large-scale spraying program. The result? 76 of them, that's 98.7%, said no. That is about as close to a consensus as you can possibly get in science.
So if it's not a secret program, what are we actually seeing up there? Well, it's really just basic physics. A jet engine spits out hot, wet exhaust. At 30,000 feet, the air is ridiculously cold, like below minus 40 degrees. When that hot, humid air hits that freezing cold air, the water vapor instantly freezes into billions of tiny ice crystals. What you're looking at is literally a man-made cloud.
And this right here, this is the key that unlocks the whole visual mystery. Why do some trails vanish in seconds, while others hang around for hours? It has nothing to do with added chemicals and everything to do with the humidity up there. If the air at that altitude is super dry, the ice crystals just evaporate and poof, the trail is gone. But if the air is humid, the ice crystals are stable. They don't go anywhere. The trail sticks around for hours, getting smeared out by the wind.
And this is the fundamental mistake a lot of people make. They see a persistent trail on a day that feels nice and dry on the ground, and they think something's not right. But as the EPA points out, what it feels like down here tells you absolutely nothing about the conditions 6 or 7 miles up in the sky. That white sky isn't a sign of chemicals, it's a sign of a very humid upper atmosphere. So what about those grid patterns that look so deliberate? Well, it's not a coordinated spraying mission. It's really just an optical illusion. You're seeing the buildup of dozens of different planes, all flying on their own separate routes that happen to follow the same FAA flight corridors. It's just the highway system of the sky, seen from below over a few hours.
Okay, so it's just simple physics in normal air traffic. Seems pretty open and shut. So the case is closed, right? Well, if it was really that simple, we wouldn't be doing this explainer.
This is where the investigation gets a whole lot more complicated. Because this is the part of the story where things get strange. When you keep digging, you start to find these little kernels of truth, real documents, and actual history that suddenly make the whole conspiracy feel, well, a lot more plausible.
Check this out. Exhibit A, a real, verifiable U.S. patent from 1991, filed by Hughes Aircraft, a major defense contractor. And what's it for? Reducing global warming by spraying metallic oxides, specifically mentioning aluminum, from airplanes into the stratosphere. I mean, you read that and it sounds exactly like the chemtrail theory.
Okay, Exhibit B. In 2015, the theory got its biggest boost yet. A paper was published in an actual peer-reviewed science journal. The scientist claimed he found toxic coal ash in rainwater and was 99% certain it was proof of a secret geoengineering program. For believers, this was it. This was the ultimate scientific proof they'd been waiting for.
And finally, Exhibit C. This one isn't a patent or a paper, this is actual declassified history. From 1967 to 72, the U.S. Air Force secretly ran Operation Popeye. Their mission was to weaponize the weather over Vietnam, seeding clouds to make the monsoon season last longer and wash out enemy supply lines. They flew thousands of missions, and when Congress asked about it, the Secretary of Defense lied and denied it existed. This is the historical precedent. It proves that the whole "they would never do that" argument is just wrong. They did.
So now we're left with these powerful, seemingly damning pieces of evidence. A patent, a scientific paper, a confirmed secret military operation. But now we have to apply that same level of scrutiny to these facts and start the tricky process of separating what's real from what's being misinterpreted. This is what we call the Great Conflation.
Let's fact-check our evidence. That Wellsback patent? It's 100% real. But it's just that, a patent for an idea. There is zero evidence that it was ever built or used. And that Herndon paper, the scientific smoking gun, it was formally retracted. The journal itself said it had serious errors, including a math error so bad the author's calculations were off by a factor of 2,000. The entire conclusion was completely invalid.
So why doesn't this theory just die? Because it gets tangled up with real things that are actually happening. Reality number one is cloud seeding. This is totally real. Ski resorts and farming districts do it all the time to make more snow or rain. And this is key, it's public, it's local, it happens in low-level clouds, and it uses silver iodide. It is not the chemtrail conspiracy.
And then there's reality number two, solar geoengineering. This is the big one, the source of so much confusion. This is a theoretical plan that serious scientists at places like Harvard are researching to fight climate change. And how would it work? By spraying aerosols high in the stratosphere to reflect sunlight. It's not happening yet, but the description, spraying the skies to block the sun, sounds almost identical to the conspiracy theory. And that creates a massive blur between fact and fiction.
And this table really lays it all out side by side. The conspiracy theory alleges a secret, ongoing program using aluminum for mind control. The reality is two completely separate things: a public, low-altitude program using silver iodide to make rain, and a theoretical, high-altitude plan to use sulfur dioxide to cool the planet. What's happening is that people are accidentally blending all three of these into one big, confusing, and totally inaccurate story.
So, that brings us to the final verdict. We've gone through the whole file, from the claims to the science to the history. But this isn't a simple case with an easy answer. It's more of a dilemma, and really, you're the jury.
So look, the core chemtrail conspiracy, as it's usually told, is false. The evidence just doesn't hold up. But to just dismiss it and walk away is to ignore the genuinely unsettling truths that we uncovered along the way. We now know for a fact that the military has secretly weaponized the weather. We know that top scientists are seriously planning a future where we spray the atmosphere on a global scale. So the final question really is this: what are we supposed to do when the fiction is false, but the facts are this strange?